All I know is just what I read in the papers, and that's an alibi for my ignorance. Will Rogers. What is a media company? Why do they exist? What purpose do they serve? Is it their job to bring the public truthful, non-biased information? No. At least, that's according to Ryan Holiday, author of Trust Me, I'm Lying, Confessions of a Media Manipulator. In his book, which focuses on the corruption of the online media world, he states, "The economies of the internet create a twisted set of incentives that make traffic more important and more profitable than the truth. With the mass media, and today, mass culture, relying on the web for the next big thing, it is a set of incentives with massive implications." Political journalism is included in this, hence why Politico, Breitbart, CNN, Fox News, The Huffington Post, and The New York Times all have ads on each page of their website. The media is a business like any other. This means that their primary intent is to stay open and turn a profit. Every business needs this, and there are no ways to circumvent it. How do businesses make money? Customers. You'd think that in terms of the media business, you'd be the customer. After all, you're the one reading the articles. You'd be wrong. Remember the ads? In order to get an advertisement on a website, you have to first buy ad space from the website's owner. The website owner, in this case, Breitbart, has created 3 available ad spaces, here, here, and here. Selling ads like this online is how many websites make the vast majority of their revenue. It makes sense when you think about it. If you put an ad on every page a user clicks through, you can show different ads from different businesses, charging the same fee for each one. The advertiser is the customer, since the website sells them a product, ad space. You get to access this website for free, so Breitbart cannot make any money off of you for just reading an article. You're there as the product. Remember, an advertisement has to get seen by someone to be worthwhile, so advertisers are only going to buy ad space on well-trafficked sites. Websites sell their customers' attention spans to advertisers in exchange for cash. News websites obey the same laws that other sites do, so they need a maximum amount of eyeballs to make their business profitable. This means they will do anything to make you click. As Ryan Holiday puts it, this matters because his business is designed to make money. The way in which they do business is the main filter for how they do news. Every story they produce must fit this mold, whatever the topic or subject. The media did not find themselves in this situation overnight. In fact, the media has always been sensational, since sensationalism is the easiest way to ensure sales. This type of sensational journalism has earned the name yellow journalism, which refers to the yellow color the pages were first printed on. The first yellow newspaper was the New York Journal-American, owned by William Randolph Hearst. Hearst is the subject of numerous controversies, but I want to focus on his involvement in World War I. You may have learned about Hearst in the context of the 1898 Spanish-American War, where Hearst's journalism is credited with getting the American public behind the war effort.
But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
A biased organization relentlessly promoting an ideological agenda under the rubric of being a news organization.
Rubric.
And, yeah, I actually think was slightly the wrong use of the word rubric.
Was it really?
A relentless, agenda-driven, 24-hour news opinion propaganda delivery system.
Yeah.
Where do you come up with this stuff?
It's actually quite easy when you feel it. You got to feel it in your soul, you know.
Well, here's the deal. Are you willing to say the same thing about the mainstream media, about ABC, CBS, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times? Would you say the same thing about them, that they are, in your words, a propaganda delivery system relentlessly pushing a liberal agenda?
No, I wouldn't say that.
In the lead-up to World War I, Hearst's New York Journal regularly ran stories that painted the war in a patriotic and romantic light. He wasn't alone in this. Just look at this letter that was published in The Atlantic in 1917, which includes lines such as, "I would like to show you the eyes of these radiant boys, turned toward the future, full of life, full of love of nature, of their parents, of their country, and consenting so readily to die. We shall see that the task they have set themselves is the glorification of their country at the cost of their blood. It is their will that from this slaughter France, and, through her, all mankind, shall flower anew." This outright, sadistic propaganda was regularly run in newspapers all across the country. Randolph Bourne, a disabled reporter writing during this time, even had a phrase for this new ideology: "War is the health of the state." Hearst acts as a figurehead of yellow journalism, a catch-all person who represents corrupt journalism in general. Once again, many people fall for this great man fallacy. This is a phenomenon when looking at history to only focus on the large names and people at the time and laying all responsibility at their feet. The truth is much more complex, as always. Practically all establishment newspapers in the lead-up to World War I ran stories just as outrageous as this one from the Atlantic. This is because a new political movement was forming among the educated elites: progressivism. Woodrow Wilson is often the most commonly associated person with the progressive era. Indeed, he was the first university president of Princeton to serve as President of the United States, marking a clear ascension of intellectuals and academia into political power. He dreamed of a universalist world, one where all nations could live in peace. Him, and those who shared his political philosophy, saw America's role in the world to be a beacon of freedom and democracy. In his own words, "The world must be made safe for democracy. Its peace must be planted among the tested foundations of political liberty. We have no selfish ends to serve. We desire no conquest, no dominion. We seek no indemnities for ourselves, no material compensation for the sacrifices we shall freely make." World War I had quite literally shattered the world. 40 million suffered casualties for a war that was fought over just a few miles of territory. At what cost? Was the world a flower now in bloom? Had the slaughter of an entire generation accomplished anything? With the shock of war, however, the state comes into its own again. The government, with no mandate from the people, without consultation of the people, conducts all the negotiations, the backing and filing, the menaces and explanations which slowly bring it into collision with some other government, and gently and irresistibly slides the country into war. For the benefit of proud and haughty citizens, it is fortified with a list of intolerable insults which have been hurled toward us by the other nations, for the benefit of the liberal and beneficent. It has a convincing set of moral purposes which our going to war will achieve. For the ambitious and aggressive classes, it can gently whisper of a bigger role in the destiny of the world. Randolph Bourne, The State. So what became of the media? Did they learn their lesson? William Randolph Hearst did, or at least his politics did. After being skeptical of the war before it began, Hearst became an avid opponent of involving the U.S. in any foreign conflicts. His newspaper business had begun to fade, however, so his warnings were lost to obscurity. His colleagues, on the other hand, had no need to change their mind. Randolph Bourne was ostracized, his disability blamed for his radical beliefs. Papers like The Atlantic continued their propaganda, although this time the American public was much more skeptical. And yet, 20 years later, the entire world would once again be bathed in blood. On a hot evening last summer, I was sitting on the terrace of the Café Corso in Bucharest when 3 young Romanian Nazis, so-called students, were wearing chocolate-colored shirts and the familiar swastika armbands swaggered up. Conversation in the cafe suddenly stopped as apprehensive patrons watched the unwelcome guests. The latter lost no time in getting down to business. Apparently looking for people reading the Dimini Edda or the Adevărul, liberal daily newspapers, they went from table to table, seizing these publications and tearing them to bits in front of the owner's eyes. Approaching a group of Jews, the trio of terrorists cuffed one man, kicked the chair from under another, and spat in the beer of a third, reviling them as they staged their act of violence. The presence of 2 policemen at the corner only a few yards away had no effect on the 3 bullies. Unimpressive-looking specimens they were, at that, undersized, sallow, and rat-faced. But the crowds clustered about the cafe tables were thoroughly cowed, because no one was willing to invite the lethal vengeance of these youthful killers and their gangs. I want to end today's video with a warning. Be wary of those who profess themselves to be truth-tellers. Ask for what purpose and for whose good, yours or theirs. And as always, this is Silence Dogood.